Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Rogue Wave podcast, the frequency for all things pop culture and the disruptors behind it. We talk comics, movies, TV, and pop culture with the rogues who create it every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on youtube.com/Rogue Matter and facebook.com/We Are Rogue Matter. Download this podcast, immediately follow the live stream on all major podcasting apps. Join the movement, go rogue, roguematter.com. Tonight, Book of Boba Fett finale, Spider-Man Oscar snub, and we welcome Tom Hutchinson, publisher and founder of Big Dog Inc. He's got a lot of cool comics coming out and some action figures, which I can't wait to show to you guys as well, too. And we get the lowdown on all the stuff from this rogue creator. I am your host, Michael Dolce, as always, joined by my cohort in crime, the Lord of the Radio himself, Mr. Hassan Godwin. How you doing, sir?
Hey, what's up?
That's right. Did you wait on bated breath for the Oscar nominations, which came out earlier this week? Were you like
not even a little bit?
Yeah, I know. Kind of just let it happen.
Not even slightly. Not half a bit.
Well, it's funny because there's quite an uproar that has mounted from these Oscar noms.
What an uproar!
And that is our Go Rogue or Go Home opening segment. Spider-Man No Way Home, snubbed with no Oscar nomination for Best Picture, despite the presence of a troika of web slingers, past and present, spoilers there, sorry, and a bonanza box office. Spider-Man No Way Home was basically nowhere to be found amidst the Oscar nominations that were unveiled on Monday. This is courtesy of Deadline. Even with a vigorous campaign to try to win over the Academy of Motion Pictures, the Tom Holland vehicle just wasn't able to overcome the enduring bias against superhero movies among voting members. Instead, the mandatory 10-movie Best Picture category will see Belfast, Coda, Don't Look Up, Drive My Car, Dune, King Richard, Licorice Pizza, Nightmare Alley, Power of the Dog, and West Side Story battling it out for the big win at the 94th Academy Awards on March 27th. My first question to you, Hassan, of those 10 films, how many have you seen?
I saw Power of the Dog. I saw Don't Look Up. I saw Dune. I saw West Side Story.
So I was sitting home on Saturday because I don't do anything anymore. And on HBO, they had Nightmare Alley. And I was like, oh, that's the Guillermo del Toro movie. I want to see this. I am really excited to see it. So I sat and I watched it. And at the end, I was kind of like, huh. And then I was shocked to see that it got nominated for a Best Picture film. Because now it's required that there are 10 films that actually, have to nominate 10 films. So I'm guessing just basically based off of Guillermo's track record, is that the best we can think? That this got included in there?
I don't know. Like, is there a wide consensus that the film was good, that people enjoyed the film?
It was there was some good marketing behind it in terms of, like, I did see trailers and I did see commercials for it, but then it quickly disappeared. It did not do well at the box office. Critic scores.
But I mean, it didn't have a super wide release. It had an independent release in the midst of the pandemic, where some major movies aren't even getting. Like West Side Story had a wide release and didn't do very well, so that obviously doesn't really matter to the Academy.
Yeah, according to Metacritic, it had a 69% rating, so obviously not in the top 10. And quite frankly, again, I watched it.
It doesn't. Yeah, but I mean, okay.
Well, Metacritic is takes all of the critic reviews and gives it one conglomerate based off of the different reviews that were done. So it does have. It is some valid metric in terms of,
man. I mean, you don't, and I know you don't because nobody knows. You don't know by what metric the Academy decides what is going to be nominated and what is not.
Right.
So, it's obviously not money. Mm-hmm. Because almost every year, the movie that's the highest box office. I mean, it's usually kind of unprecedented where the stats of highest box office, and also like highest honors are commingled together.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is not a surprise.
No, it's not.
Really.
And Deadline goes on to kind of say, released on December 17th of last year, the John Watts directed No Way Home proved a double threat. It was the movie that was much more widely praised by critics than the usual superpowered Hollywood effort. And additionally, it ended the cinema drought that encompassed the past 18 months. It drew audiences back into theaters and smashed pandemic box office records to hit a worldwide haul of nearly $1.8 billion. It saw No Way Home swing up the heights of being the top movie of 2021 and the sixth highest grossing film ever. Now, a lot of this dates back to the fact that it was another superhero movie. It was The Dark Knight. The backlash to the absence of a Best Picture nomination for Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight at the 81st Academy Awards torn open a long festering Oscars wound. To cauterize the situation, in 2009 it was announced that 10 films would be contenders for Best Picture. A couple years later, that edict was augmented to a less strict standard of no more than 10 films. Flipping the script back again, the Academy decided it would have a guaranteed 10 Best Picture nominees. Bottom line for the Best Picture nominees, the number one reason for this is not to worry about fans, because like you said, there's no metric for what gets nominated for Best Picture. It's to improve the ratings of the telecast. Essentially, movies that we just don't watch and no one has ever seen, even Netflix movies necessarily don't always, even though if you are a Netflix subscriber, you might not watch Don't Look Up. You might not watch The Power of the Dog. You might not watch, you need Apple Plus to get Coda. There's a lot of varying, reasons as to why it should be easy to watch these films, and yet people still just don't. But the bottom line is they want films. They open this up to 10 categories so that people watch the Oscars telecast. For that reason alone, Spider-Man should make the top 10 in theory, just because it was the most popular film of the movie. But I like the fact there was one commenter that I was perusing the interwebs, and he said, that's why you have the MTV Movie Awards. You have the MTV Movie Awards for the popularity contest. You don't have it necessarily in terms of Best Picture.
I think we went over this like a ton of times, in previous years. Like the approval process for these movies and how these movies are picked have nothing to do with any of the merits that we would attribute to why something would be chosen to win any kind of prestigious award. So, I think, it's again, apologies, but it's a nothing burger anyway, because what was trending most was how nobody cared about what the Oscar picked, and everybody's talking about it as though it's a big deal. It's not really a big deal.
I feel like
it's not going to stop Spider-Man from making the money that it's making or breaking the records that it's breaking.
Yeah,
it's not going to make any of the movies fall into obscurity, and it's not going to make any of the movies that they picked into higher grossing films themselves.
Yeah.
It's not gonna save them at the box office either. It is going to probably help them trend better on home video, in the home market, or home streaming or whatever. But I
feel like streaming has really blurred the lines also, in terms of you have these movie-sized budgets now. I mean, basically take what TV. If you consider streaming to be the equivalent of TV, right? I mean, it's the home viewing experience, which was, again, relegated to just a single, cable box and or a set of 13 channels, right? And you had, to Steven Spielberg's point a few years ago, you had the TV Emmys. You had these things that were different than movies. Movies are, a social experience. At the very least, it's an outdoor experience, an experience where you have to leave your home to experience it. And I think with the onset of streaming now, everything is blurred, because these are obviously film quality budgets. These are, casting. Don't Look Up has an unbelievable cast of stars to it. Now, Netflix kind of circumvents the rules a little bit, and they will get limited theatrical releases for their films. They did it with Roma a few years ago, where just to kind of satiate, kind of like to check the box, so to speak, in terms of the rules and regulations as to what makes a movie like an Oscar quality movie versus what would be the equivalent of like a TV film movie. But I think as we keep going, with streaming, and ultimately streaming ends up swallowing up what the old way of doing theater is, I think the Oscars are going to actually mean less and less when all is said and done. As weird as that sounds, I almost feel like the grandiose of going to a, the grandiose experience of going to the theaters to witness something in a social capacity is going to get swallowed up by the more intimate setting of your home. Maybe you're watching something with your family, maybe your wife at most. You're not going to, I can't imagine you're going to have too many like neighbor nights where neighbors come over and you're all going to watch the big movie. I think it has definitively blurred it to the point where I think the Oscars, it just doesn't mean, I don't know, doesn't mean as much to me in terms of the nominations.
Okay, I guess so. I mean, neighbor nights, like you're not going to have people come over and watch movies, but you're talking about that's a home video. It's more of a home market. So wouldn't that mean that would happen more? I
would say that the idea you would normally, I'm equating that to like normally going to the movies with friends is my point. Whereas I don't think you're going to have, when it's time to watch movies and you're thinking of things to do, you're not going to necessarily invite people over to watch a movie. I feel like, as opposed to where in the past you'd be like, hey, you want to go out and do something, let's go see a movie. I'm equating that to a changing perspective. I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe people still want to go to the theater. I still enjoy going to the theater, but it's obvious from the box office receipts, it just ain't happening because there's just too much competition to sit on your butt. I watched like I said, Nightmare Alley. I wasn't going to go watch that in theaters. I was intrigued by it and I was excited to watch it, Saturday night, but I was excited to watch it from my home, Yeah.
I suppose so. I don't know. It depends. It all depends on the film and the circumstance. Obviously Spider-Man proves that that's not the case.
Yeah.
And so did like Fast and Furious and a couple other movies, Yeah. So, I went to see Dune in IMAX and the place was packed, So, I mean, there are things that people will come out for. It's just like everything else. You're just going to have to up the game. Things are going to have the experience is going to have to be different. You're going to have to change the experience. The movies are going to have to, the variety of movies is going to have to be different. Either they're going to have the spectacle's going to have to be upped, or the spectacle's going to the stakes are going to have to be lowered to some degree. So, I mean, I don't disagree, but I don't 100% agree that this is the indication that anything is over. It just means that a lot of things need to change.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. I think it's changing. That's the bottom line. I think everything is changing. I think the movies that are going to be Oscar quality going forward are going to be the ones that are on Netflix and Apple and HBO Max. They're going.
I understand what you're saying, but then you're pretty much predicting the end of like the theater experience.
No, I think it's the end of the theater experience tied to the Oscars. That's what I think.
How much of the Oscars is?
You're going to get 4 more Spider-Man No Way Homes before you get.
How much of the Oscars is based on the theater experience? Because most of the movies they pick don't even have a large theater box office. Don't have a large theater presence.
But this is not going back 5, 10 years, 15 years. Titanic was the #1 movie of all time, and it swept.
Yeah, but but like I said, that's an outlier. Like, it's very rare that the highest grossing movie becomes a pick for best picture or best director. It's a very rare situation.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's a movie that no one's ever heard of.
I think in the past, though, people's complaints were, pick movies that we've actually seen. And that seems to be something in the past 10 years or so where that has.
All right. I said, if you research, I hate to like do your research because that's not what that means. But if you research what goes into picking these movies, you'll see that that metric has never meshed.
Yeah,
like the public opinion of something versus the Academy opinion of something has never meshed. So pick movies we've never seen. Basically, the Academy is not a reflection on public opinion.
Yeah,
the Academy is an institution unto itself. Excuse me, and it is exalted as the as the definitive, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. you know?
Very true. What do you guys think? Did Spider-Man get snubbed? Should it have been part of the best 10 movies out there? We'll do some more Oscar coverage as we get a little closer. We'll speculate, or at least I will speculate, as to Dune's chances of winning. We'll do a whole bunch of stuff as we get closer to the actual Oscar ceremony. But for right now, did Spider-Man get the snub? Put it in the comment feed, put it in the chat feed, and we will respond back to you. When we come back, Book of Boba Fett finale. Whose show was it when all is said and done? When we come back. Welcome back to the Rogue Wav podcast. Just a reminder, go to roguematter.com. Check out all the content on there. Comic books, ebooks, podcasts like ours, videos, and more. Everything on there is free to consume. That's right, free. This week, Time Trader number 1. Dylan Sharp is an upstart with the ability to rewind time whenever he wants to. He takes his powers to the stock market only to find it's run by an Illuminati of people just like him. Fabian Nicieza gave us a great endorsement recently. He is of Deadpool and X-Men and Batman fame. He's also a novelist now, just a successful novelist when he released his first novel. But he does a great endorsement. Go check everything out on roguematter.com. Time Trader number 1 is up and free to read right now. All right. Book of Boba Fett. Now, this is an interesting quandary. I don't like to give dead air, so I'm going to give a word that might not actually suit what I meant. Anything Star Wars turns to gold for the most part, up until, let's say, Disney kind of took over, right? And then you had The Force Awakens was hugely successful. The Last Jedi, while commercially successful, was critically divisive. And then you had the Rise of Skywalker, which was a flaming piece of poop. Because it didn't know what to be. Did
really well, though.
It didn't know what to be, right. But not compared to the first two, though. There was...
Yeah, but I mean, there's always ever diminishing returns in any sequel situation. So within the average of reason, yeah, sure.
Ask any Marvel movie. I mean, every Marvel movie continues to just do better and better.
But I mean, if you look at the metrics, I mean, Marvel, again, is an outlier. If you look at the metrics of any trilogy,
sure.
The 3 movies, there's always a successive decline, in box office and trilogies. So
sure, I can agree with that statement. Then you had basically by the end of the trilogy, you had a fractured fan base. You had a lot of folks questioning, at least online, whether or not Star Wars was broken. Enter Jon Favreau, enter Dave Filoni, enter The Mandalorian. And after 2 seasons, anything they touched was gold. Star Wars itself became a buzzworthy again, huge again. I mean, just the fact that my son has never seen a Star Wars show or movie yet. We tried with the New Hope when he was like 4. It's a little too much for him, so we're gonna try again now that he's turning 6. But he loves Baby Yoda. Loves Baby Yoda. Can't get enough Baby Yoda. Owns a Baby Yoda. Has never seen a show with Baby Yoda in it. Loves it. That is the power or the commercial success that Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni were able to reinstall and restore with The Mandalorian. Season 2 ends. We get another, what looks to be like what would be a surefire hit, right? Boba Fett, fan favorite character, getting his own series, limited series, however you want to describe it. But met with, I would say, not quite the buzz that Mandalorian was met with. And in the ratings, was beaten out 1 week by Peacemaker, and we'll probably end up seeing more of that, in fact, in terms of just, when we get the ratings, just based off of if we're looking at what the online buzz surrounding it was. People thought it was too long. People thought it was drawn out. And then a curious thing happened 2 episodes ago where all of a sudden it shifted into bringing back The Mandalorian. And not just bringing back The Mandalorian, but resolving questions that arrived from season 2 to the point where people were kind of questioning, okay, am I watching The Mandalorian now? They brought back, spoilers in case you guys haven't are not up to date on everything. They brought back CGI Luke, Return of the Jedi Luke Skywalker. They brought back Grogu. They essentially continued the Mandalorian story midway through this Boba Fett series. So it definitely laid out some curious decisions in terms of, pacing for a show. And then also, again, the ultimate question of whose show was it ultimately, when you end up having almost two different shows kind of smushing together into one. Now, I've gone on record. I've enjoyed the pacing of the show. I've actually enjoyed the show. I enjoyed the whole arc with the Sand People. I enjoyed the arc of Boba Fett, maneuvering himself as the domo of Tatooine and Mos Eisley and just, trying to assume his power there. I think it's been actually fairly consistent to me with Mandalorian. But what it speaks to me, the quote unquote backlash, what it speaks to me is the fact that what Favreau and Filoni were able to do with The Mandalorian, creating essentially a brand new character based off of something familiar, which was the armor itself, but creating something ultimately, new that it raised the stakes. And Boba Fett, just from a sheer likability standpoint, just doesn't measure up. It's almost comical in a way that when The Mandalorian, to me, when it first came out, I'm like, oh, they're doing a Boba Fett show. Oh, that's not Boba Fett? Oh, I'm very confused. Boba Fett's really popular. How are they going to make something just as good? And they actually ended up making something better, that when you finally get a Boba Fett series, it's like, well, kind of The Mandalorian did it better. So I don't know, they almost gave themselves the hardest obstacle to overcome, which was they created something similar to Boba Fett that ended up being better than Boba Fett, and when all was said and done, more likable than Boba Fett. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I disagree. So
yeah.
I don't know if he's better than Boba Fett. He's a different character. I mean, I don't know if Mandalorian is better than Boba Fett. I don't know if Boba Fett is better than Mandalorian, or at least, I mean, Boba Fett's really wasn't a character. I mean, the show had a lot of its work cut out for it, just to establish him as an actual character. We had more of Jango Fett than we ever had of Boba Fett.
That's true.
So there was a need to distinguish those two characters.
Yeah.
So, I mean, look, the mileage varies. I get why, there are some people who are disappointed. It wasn't like a rip roaring, roller coaster ride of gimmickry and, of amazing set pieces and imagery and stuff like that. It was mainly stuck, if that's the word you want to use, on one planet in the Star Wars universe, like basically probably the most famous planet in the Star Wars universe, next to a close second would be Coruscant. And so I get some of it,
Yeah.
But I mean, look, if there's 7 episodes and Mandalorian was in 2, that means Boba Fett was featured very heavily in 5.
Yep.
So I mean, that's by law of averages. That
if you had to gauge everything. what were the more interesting episodes, or the more compelling episodes that seemed that it, again, I'm just talking about fandom here. It would seem to me that the 2 episodes that didn't feature Boba Fett were the episodes people were like, wow, that was really great. I'm really enjoying this now. And
I guess that's fine. I guess I mean,
right? Isn't that a problem if you call it the Book of Boba Fett? It's the same thing with Falcon and Winter Soldier in a way, right?
No, it's not.
Okay.
I disagree.
How come?
I'm not gonna. I don't want to get into it because I have been accused in the past of being a dog on a bone when it comes to stuff like that. So, look, it's your mileage varies. It is your decision as to how you feel about it. That's strictly. I disagree with that notion.
Okay. Esquire wrote a good recap of the finale. So again, spoilers if you haven't watched it. I know it was on earlier today, so we'll do our best to kind of avoid giving huge details as to what happens. But they do talk about, the question of whose show is this. The first half of the Book of Boba Fett is the Book of Boba Fett, and the second half is Mandalorian 2.5. The finale feels like two shows crushed together. 1 minute, Mando looks like an extra, quietly watching Boba think and strategize and think again. The next, you get the reunion that your withering heart has long wanted. It's not great, and at times even a little whiplash-inducing. However, when it all ends, I'm trying to do this non-spoilery. Not much about Boba's journey was pretty, but the man may have gotten his redemption. And again, I'm going to caveat the may have. That is now paraphrasing the article because I'm trying to avoid spoilers in it. I will say this. Much of this show, and we were kind of talking about the Oscar conversation from last segment, right? Much of the show, I felt I easily could watch on my phone because it was small in scale. And I mean that. I mean that in terms of I didn't feel the need to have to go and put it up on my big screen TV to watch it. I could just kind of digest it as a character study. The train sequence I thought was probably the most striking up until the finale of everything that was going on. For watching that, I ended up watching that on the big screen because it's like, wow, that's a really cool action scene. But for the most part, it was a very quiet show. I don't fault it though. And I don't want to mistake.
I don't know. It sounds like you do.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't want to mistake me questioning how effective it was as a Boba Fett show as to how much I enjoyed it as a Star Wars show. Because I actually really did. I did enjoy it.
I just don't. I don't get the question of like how is it is or isn't a Boba Fett show when it was when probably 80% of it was the backstory of Boba Fett ever since he got out of the Sarlacc pit, and how he came to, be in the position that he's in, trying to take over as major domo of. I mean, that's 90% of the story. Now, the argument could be, was the story effective?
Well, that's
or was it, but no, the argument seems to be whose story is it? And that's illogical to me because obviously it's his story.
But you're Captain Literal Man sometimes, right? Like the idea of you actually hit the nail on the head.
If you're going to ask me, then that's going to be my reaction. That's not. I don't say that should be the reaction of anybody else.
More impactful though, and I think
that's not. Really, I understand that, but that wasn't the question I was asked. You
you are Captain Literal Man. I mean, that's the idea. When
how else would you take a question other than literally? Like if it's a figurative question, then you would say figuratively. I mean, it's a direct question, is it not?
No,
it's my. Hold on. Is it my fault that I took your direct question literally?
Yes.
Or okay. See, that's why I'm not engaging in that because the the math is skewed on it.
Figuratively, whose story was it? See, I guess I just have to phrase it correctly.
But here's what's a mess. Everybody knows, just like the fact that the third Captain America movie had all of the Avengers in it. Yeah. Still Captain America's movie, right? But Iron Man featured in it just as heavily as Captain America. So did Winter Soldier. Mm-hmm. They had the Civil War in the Captain America's movie, but it was still Captain America's movie. You know why nobody questioned that? Because it's all one story. Right. That's what Star Wars is. It's all one story. So yes, Book of Boba Fett is another chapter in the overall story of the Star Wars phenomenon. But so was Return of the Jedi, which
what I would say to that though, what I would say to what you just said though is I think now we know that.
I guess I'm done. I want
to respond to that specific comment, though.
What do you mean? But I mean, no, obviously we don't know that if we're still asking questions about whose movie it is, like whose television show it is. And like, if it's not 100% understood that this is this is a pastiche that encompasses everybody in the Star Wars universe, and that's what they're attempting to establish here, then obviously it is not widely understood, right?
Oh, that's my point. I don't think before Book of Boba Fett it was widely understood, mainly because The Mandalorian, while it did bring back elements of past Star Wars characters, storylines, and things like that, it always felt like it was a Mandalorian.
Yeah, but Mandalorian doesn't explain itself. Like, if you hadn't seen the Star Wars movies, you wouldn't understand what the heck is going on with Mandalorian.
I don't think you would enjoy it as much. I don't think you
wouldn't understand why the Stormtrooper helmets were stuck on spikes in Tatooine. You wouldn't understand where the Empire went, because it doesn't try to explain to you exactly where it is on the timeline. You wouldn't understand what a Mandalorian is, as a matter of fact, or what the Beskar armor is. You wouldn't understand who Baby Yoda is. It all goes together. Yeah, it all goes together. Like I
would sit there and tell you what you just said up until the Baby Yoda part. I think is inconsequential to enjoying the Mandalorian. I don't think you need to know.
And just as it's inconsequential to enjoying the Book of Boba Fett.
Well, again, I guess going back to being a literal thinker, if you're going to present a show as The Mandalorian or as the Book of Boba Fett, that's it's definitely something.
Yeah, but I mean, like, there's
major plot lines. There's going to be now happening in someone else's show.
There's going to be stuff in Cassian Andor that's going to be like from Rogue One or prior to Rogue One, and probably stuff from the prequels, and probably stuff from Solo, which takes place before it. There's definitely going to be a lot of stuff from the original series in the Obi-Wan story. The setting up for the original series, stuff from the prequels. It's all going to be connected. Well, now it's all going to be understood to be connected, right? You're probably going to see cameos. You're either going to hear about stuff about Jabba and how he's in control of Tatooine, since Obi-Wan's going to be on Tatooine. I mean, there's not a lot of stuff.
We're going back to Tatooine, aren't we?
Obi-Wan's going to be on Tatooine. That's just
they love that desert show. They must have real estate in the sands of wherever they film. Like they must have like an investment in there, because they just keep.
Nobody has gone back to Tunisia since Attack of the Clones, so don't worry about it. It's not.
Well, I want to say I want to talk about that post-credit scene. Is it worth even mentioning at this point?
I don't know. It's up to you.
I don't know. We're gonna try to keep this. You know what we're gonna do? We're gonna keep this spoiler free as possible. We won't talk about the post-credit scene, because
what would you have to say about it? Other than.
Yeah, I would sit there and say,
"Oh my god, you sit there."
We'll pass on it. We'll pass on it for now. What did you guys think? Were you ultimately satisfied with the Book of Boba Fett? Were you?
That wasn't even the question that we asked in this segment, though.
Well, we'll ask. You know what we're gonna do, though. What we get to do, though, is we've got Tom Hutchinson coming right up next, so we're gonna bring him in. We're gonna ask him.
Yeah. Okay.
When we come back, and he's gonna talk about all the cool stuff he's doing. We'll see you shortly when we come back. Welcome back to the Rogue Wav podcast. Happy to have returning guest Tom Hutchinson, founder and publisher and writer of Big Dog Inc. How you doing, sir?
Doing well.
You're not actually the writer of Big Dog Inc. You're a writer at Big Dog Inc. You're the founder.
Correct.
And publisher.
There is no Big Dog Inc. title. That is the company. So I write all of the titles for Big Dog Inc., or most of them anyway.
So,
I mean, it's fair to say the writer of Big Dog Inc.
One of the writers. I do have. We have had other writers in the past, guys that like Pat Shand have come through and do stuff for us. So, but I write about 99% of what we do.
So maybe then you might deserve the. And all right, but I'm not.
He's definitely the publisher and founder of Big Dog Inc.
Correct. That is correct. Yes.
Yeah.
How many years you guys been in business now? Or what year? What annual are you celebrating today?
Yeah, this is 12 years of Big Dog Inc. publication. Nice. Technically, we've been around for a year before as we kind of built ourselves, but we kind of treat our first published work as our starting point, which was 2010 with Critter and Penny for Your Soul. So this is 12 years of Big Dog Inc. And it is going to be 10 years now celebrating our specific title, Ursa Minor. So last few years, we've kind of had these 10-year, last year was the Legend of Oz 10-year anniversary, and so on and so on. So we've kind of, hit these key moments, year after year after year, which is kind of cool and kind of fun. So we've kind of taken advantage of it and focused on those titles for a period of time. And then we move on to the next year and do something else.
Nice. That's awesome. And was it Wizard World Los Angeles 07 or 08 that we met? I don't remember.
Oh my God.
07, I think.
It's a good question. That's a good question. In fact, what's funny
is... Not to date ourselves.
Yeah, I had some memories pop up on Facebook that were with you. And I was like, oh my God, this is like forever ago.
I was bombarding Hassan with memories and photos from Facebook from like our band days back in the day when we were
I saw those.
Rock band.
I saw those. Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about. We were never in a band. That time never happened.
You know what? I gotta say,
I don't recognize myself or you or anybody in those pictures. I recognize none of it.
No, there's one shot of us when we were at Wizard World Chicago back when we were at Wizard, where we look young. I mean, there is no like we look like babies essentially, even though I think we were like in our 20s. There wasn't anything.
It's like that Ray Winstone situation from Crystal Skull. I still am young, even though like Ray Winstone looked like the oldest person on the set right there. That's how I feel. But we were
come
babies.
Here to reminisce about our days. They came to talk about Spider-Man getting snubbed at the Oscars.
Did they?
Maybe they did. I hope if my marketing
who are these people?
Yes, they did.
Listen, Garfield got the nod, not for Spider-Man.
Tick, tick, boom, yes.
He got the nod. It's close enough.
Close enough.
Spider-Man's in there.
I think people in general are upset with the notion that that comic book movies aren't considered art. Right, in the highest sense of it,
I think they are absolutely considered art. I just don't think they're considered high art.
Well, that's what I'm saying. In the highest form.
Okay, sure.
Good distinction.
Sure. They're not.
It's a little literal, but
yeah, they're not the Godfather necessarily, right? But they're certainly valid. I mean, they're valid storytelling, vehicles.
I agree.
Your mileage may vary from one to the other, but. And even though I'm pretty harsh on these things, I can still accept the validity of what these things are. But I wouldn't put Spider-Man in Best Picture of the Year. Come on, there's far more movies that deserve that. Just in the context of Marvel movies alone, I would put the Infinity movies ahead of Spider-Man as far as their storytelling and their value and so on. Not to say that I didn't mind Spider-Man; it was fine, but it's not best movie. Come on, guys.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
The argument is, I guess, can something that is popular actually also be considered high art? And I don't disagree with either of you guys. I mean, I wouldn't put Spider-Man in the Oscar caliber equation, but
Has there ever been like a pop culture movie to get best movie nomination before?
Like Black Panther.
Happened?
Black Panther would be
did
big.
Black
Joker.
Panther get Best Picture?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, Joker. Sure. Okay.
And Joker. So those are the two that broke. Those are the ones that broke through.
Okay.
Right.
And
now Joker
with Joker, you've got not really a superhero movie. It's
correct.
That's a very
remake
of mental health movie that is wrapped around the Joker figure.
Right.
I mean, you could literally tell this story without the Joker.
Yes.
It just happens to be with the Joker. So,
and then arguably Black Panther has like a historical precedence. So you could get around the superhero angle of it and say that the movie has cultural significance and that's why it was picked.
Like an inflection point in American culture.
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
So usually like I was saying in the previous segment, usually the pop culture icon doesn't get the nod. Like it's very rare that Gladiator gets a Best Picture. It's very rare that. So I mean, it has happened. Braveheart. I think Braveheart got Best Director though, But it has, sometimes it has happened where a financial phenomenon is also a pop culture phenomenon,
sure,
and also an Academy Award winning, product. But it's not typical that this happens.
Or at least, again, just getting the nomination. I don't think it has to win. The requisite of it is not that it has to win. It just has to be recognized. I think that's where the arguments always come in.
It's at least a start.
Yeah, well, that's what they're hoping for. But I mean, ultimately, it all comes down to the financial component, right? Nobody watches the Oscars anymore because they haven't seen the movie. We did a poll of the 10 movies that were there. I just watched Nightmare Alley this past weekend. I thought it was meh. I haven't seen The Power of the Dog. Hassan, is that worth it? Is that a good?
Yeah, it's a good movie.
That's the
strange movie. It's a subdued movie, very quiet, but it's. I mean, if you're watching it for Unforgiven because you think it's Unforgiven, then no. If you're watching it for what it is, then yeah, you could. It's a worthwhile movie. It's a good movie.
I think I've only seen a couple on the list, and the one that kind of shocked me the most was Don't Look Up.
Yeah.
Because I thought that was a fantastic. Well, let me be very clear. It's not a fantastic movie. It's an important movie. It's a weirdly paced movie, but in the end, I really enjoyed it. I thought the cast was great. I love basically anything Jonah Hill is in.
Sure.
And it's another film arguably that has cultural significance, right? It's another
totally. If you really understand it, which I still think the people that are like, what? I'm like, you didn't get this movie. Like, you need to watch this again because it's not about a comet.
No,
it's
not at
all. Oh crap. I changed my mind about it now. No, I'm just kidding. No, that was an enjoyable movie. That was, again, one of those movies like Nightmare Alley that I looked at the previews and I was like, I really want to watch this. And so I was able to consume. So I wasn't surprised by that. Dune, actually, I'm weirdly not surprised that Dune got a Best Picture nom either, because I felt that it has, even though it's a sci-fi movie, which could be considered taboo, it kind of checks those boxes. You know the old saying when they were discussing, a judge was discussing whether or not something was pornography or not. He's like, I know it when I see it. Dune is one of those sci-fi, falls into that category of that looks like high art, even though it's sci-fi, versus Spider-Man, which is just really a fun movie. It's got William Dafoe back, and that's great, and it's cool, but it's not it's not one of those I know it when I see it kind of things.
Sometimes design and tone can put you over the hump, which Dune has design and tone. It just doesn't have much else going on. Like, I just was like, but
it feels like something that could get
nominated. It feels like it should have been something. Yeah, exactly. It has a feel of like, I think this.
It probably will be something when you get the other half of the movie in, but you're gonna 3 hours. You want to give half of a book an award. It's kind of strange, but I mean, it is a visual accomplishment
for sure. For sure.
But I do agree. But I mean, Dune is this weird amorphous monster that's been with us since forever, and nobody really understands it. And nobody gets it, and so I guess the Villeneuve's ability to contextualize it in a form that modern audiences could sit there and didn't feel like they were preached to, or didn't feel like they wanted to fall asleep, for the most part.
I nodded.
Yeah, well,
I enjoyed it.
My biggest accomplishment was that when I sat down to see it in IMAX, just as the credits started, I realized I had to go to the bathroom. And I managed to hold it for all 3 hours.
No. Oh no!
And that was I felt like a god after. I felt like,
that
oh
is
my
an
god,
accomplishment. That's well done. That's
because
well done.
I'm in IMAX. So I'm looking to my left and my right, and I'm like, I literally have to step on 100 people just to get out of here. I'm not doing it.
But
so
wait, did you had?
I don't know about the movie.
Had you seen the movie already?
I had seen it at home.
So you could have went to the bathroom.
Didn't want to. I did.
Well, he didn't want to disrupt the people.
The point wasn't what I was going to miss. The point was the disturbance I was going to cause getting out of there, and then getting back in there. I just didn't feel like doing it. So I managed it, and I was quiet. My friend and I were together, and he had no idea. So he was. I'm like, oh my god, I did it, and he was like, what'd you do? And I'm like, I can't tell you. I have to go do something first, and And then I came back and I explained it to him. He was like, he said the same thing you guys said. It's like, why did you even do that to yourself?
I have a very like graphic moment in my head now of just like a noise coming from the bathroom of just satisfaction that lifts like pigeons are flying somewhere in a park. It was that good. We've shifted into a dark area now.
It's a male bathroom in a movie theater, so that's like, that's not just me. That's everybody. It's a euphoric place usually. But anyway, Book of Boba Fett, Tom. Now, I know you haven't seen the finale, and I think we did an excellent spoiler-free. He spoiled it. No, he spoiled it.
I think we did an excellent job.
He totally spoiled it.
The question we posed, though, was whose show ultimately was this? And figuratively speaking,
without having seen the finale, I have my judgment is skewed because I've only seen 6 episodes, of which 4 were Mandalorian, or 4 were Boba Fett, and 2 were Mandalorians. Mm-hmm. So it's a little strange. For me, though, the problem that I have with this show is not even so much the content; it's the way the story is being told. The first 3 were really choppy in their back and forth with the flashbacks and so on. Mm-hmm. And I'm okay with that concept in storytelling. Like the Watchmen movie went back and forth very easily. I had no problem with it. But for whatever reason, I was completely disengaged from like the first 3 episodes. Like, what is going on? Just get me to the story that matters. I understand you want to tell me about the Tuskens and all this kind of stuff, which is like, now we're making Tusken Raiders like good guys somehow. I don't know why this is suddenly happening. So
because Boba Fett is a good guy now too.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so there's weirdness in it, but I'm like, okay, fine, it's content, it's whatever it is. But just the story pacing was strange. And then of course, like these Power Ranger Vespa guys show up for an episode, like for some reason. That's
really a lot of people had a problem with those guys.
They were strange and pointless, and then they had a really horrible race through Mazespa that just looked terrible. And then by the way, now we're going to do a Mandalorian episode, just because, like, why not?
Yeah.
So okay, and that was the best part. I mean, those 2 were the best, far better than what we got presented in the first 4.
Well, that's where the question became: whose story did this turn out to be? I mean, was this essentially a 2-episode Mandalorian season? That was just crammed into a Boba Fett vehicle.
Yeah, I just don't get like people like willfully not understanding the format that Disney has been putting together for the last 20 years with all their movies and entertainment entries. Like everything is connected. So
connected, sure. I mean, we know these guys are connected. We knew that already. But it's the pacing that was weird. It's like
the pacing. I grant you that the pacing was off. Yeah. I don't know about this. Whose Boba show was
and
it?
Now we'll just give you a Mandalorian episode because
that's fine.
And by the way, let's make sure we know that the mechanic chick dates Jawas. Like what? Who cares? Like, what is this supposed to mean? I mean,
do you know who that is? By the way, you know what actress that is? It's Amy Sedaris. She was of Comedy Central fame. I don't know if you guys have ever. I mean, again,
I know who Amy Sedaris is. Yeah, definitely.
She played the really old girl. I forget what was the show in Comedy Central. It's gonna escape me. But I saw her name in the credits again, and I had to remind myself that was her. She's been around for a long time.
I know what you're talking about.
She's doing her best Rhea Perlman.
Yes,
according to her, that's who she's channeling for that character.
That's funny.
Wow, that is absolutely spot on. The one thing I will say about the finale, which we didn't get to do in the last segment because I knew you were coming on the show and I was like, we got to get to you now, was that it did what Mandalorian seems to do really well as well, which is tie everything kind of together.
Sure.
Whether or not it was the best way to do it, it at least ties back to everything you saw. There's nothing that was wasted. There was
okay. Well, the whole thing was the guy I don't know if it was Favreau or one of the other, or Filoni was like, you wait till you get to the end, guys. It's all going to be there at the end. And I'm like, yeah, but you're making me go through 6 hours roughly of content just to see your finale. I want some stuff along the way that I care about too. I don't want to just.
The other thing that they do that I actually kind of applaud, because we're living in like a Walking Dead, Game of Thrones kind of society, to where it's expected on TV that every episode has these like stop on a dime, like everything changes, shocking. Oh my God, that person died and that person died. There were hints early on that if this was that kind of show, to where you'd be like, oh man, I can't wait for this betrayal to happen, or I can't wait for, but actually it's It's always very straightforward. And they did this in Mandalorian also, where the temptation to all of a sudden just like flip it, is there, because I think we're now like, because of Walking Dead and because of Game of Thrones, we're almost wired to like think this way. And I remember early on, and again, I'm trying to go very spoiler free here, but there were, things that happened in previous episodes of Book of Boba Fett where they're like, "Uh-oh, watch out. That's a Trojan horse right there if I ever saw one." And then going forward, it's like, oh no, it's actually exactly what we saw on screen is exactly what was going on here. And I actually almost applaud Favreau and Filoni for going that route of, we're not trying to hit you over the head with the shock of everything. We're just going to give you something that, whether or not it pans out for every individual, turns out to be, a solid delivery of what our expectations are. All right. You have a huge universe to talk about. We're going to show on screen right now. You have these awesome Critter action figures. We're showing them right now to everybody, for the world to take a look at. Talk to us about Critter. Yeah. What is Critter for the uninitiated, and how do these action figures come about?
Yeah, so Critter was the first comic book that I ever started to write when I decided, okay, I'm going to go ahead and write comics. I grew up with superheroes, so it was very natural for me to just create a superhero and run with the tropes and the things that I understood to kind of teach myself how to write a comic book, because I'd never done it before. And it took me a while. It took me a while to figure out kind of how to do it. It took me a while to find who she was. She'd been with me a long time. 1992, she was created in the back of business class when I was bored out of my mind.
That's
I wanted to be
the best stuff gets happen. Yeah.
I wanted to be an artist at the time, so I created her to draw her.
Probably good that you took a business class, though, by the way.
For sure, yeah. And my business guy, my professor loved me. He's like, "You've got this figured out." I'm like, "Yeah, I don't, but I'm going to run with what you've given me for this semester, and we'll see what happens." But yeah, I created her so that I could learn how to draw. And it didn't take long for me to realize that wasn't going to happen. So I fell into the writing side of things. And so 1992, 1992, she was created. 2010, we published our first comics from Big Dog Inc. Penny for Your Soul was first, and Critter came second. So, and Critter only came second really because the artist was slower, and that's just kind of the way that it worked out. So, we put out an origin story in 2010, came back with a mini series in 2011, came back with an ongoing series in 2012. So it's 10 years of her ongoing series. Woo! But it's old school fun superhero stuff. It is, spandex costumes, utility belts, secret identities. It's all the stuff that we kind of had in like the 70s and 80s in large scale when I was reading comics, and how a lot of it's kind of, in a lot of cases, has just gone away. Like, we don't even worry about secret identities anymore. People are just Wolverine, and they are just whoever they are, with rare exception. I mean, there's no more Diana Prince, for Wonder Woman, etc. So
I saw a meme, a split meme of Captain America and Iron Man and someone else from Marvel, and then Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. And it said at the top, it said, for the Marvel guys, wears masks, everyone knows who they are. And then the bottom it says, wears no mask, and no one knows who the hell they are for the DC guys. It's just really strange that that the superhero has become the celebrity, and then everybody knows it, and it's okay for the. I'm sorry.
Continue. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, the superhero genre. I mean, obviously, it's changed greatly over the years. I wanted to ground her more in kind of what I grew up with, which was like the 70s and 80s of storytelling. I mean, obviously it's a modern story in the now, but the storytelling style, like we talked about, there's a way to tell a story. And I kind of fall back onto my love of the 70s and 80s. So it's old school superheroes. She's a country girl from the Midwest, gets recruited by a team out in California. She moves out to California, finds out that being a real superhero is a lot harder than it was back home. So instead of pulling, kittens out of trees and tractors out of mud, now she's fighting real bad guys. She's not always winning. It's very Spider-Man-esque in that, Peter got bit by the spider, but he didn't just become Spider-Man. He had to figure out how to become Spider-Man. What does it mean to be Spider-Man? So it's similar in that regard as far as the origin stories and stuff go. And so, flash forward from 2010 to 2022, 12 years of publication, 60,000 copies printed. And now we have the opportunity to actually produce a real honest to God toy action figure, not just like a simple 3D printed standee thing that happens a lot now, but a fully articulated 30 points of articulation, completely new sculpt,
That's
collector's
awesome.
box, like the whole thing, like a real, like if you would go to the Comic-Con and you would find like a Lady Death figure or like a Vampirella figure, like it's that. It's like a 6-inch figure, similar to like the G.I. Joe Classified, if people know those, or the Star Wars Black, kind of in that sort of realm of action figures. There's a couple of extra accessories. She's got different hands, fists, and claws. There's 2 versions. There is the classic blue, which is what the costume that she started with. And then as we got into the series, it modified a little bit. We call it the modern blue. It's a little bit darker, some detail changes. But because we were able to do that with paint apps and not resculpt the whole thing, we managed to keep the price down to something, rational, for our consumers, which is good. We can't be selling these things for like $100 a shot.
Sure.
So, so that's where we are. We are now 3 days away. So this is Wednesday. We end Saturday night, Saturday, February 12th, 11:45. We are roughly $1,500-ish away from a monstrous goal of 35,000 that we needed to pull this off. We had a really great day today so far. We still have time to go. So today should end up being really good. And I'm super excited and super freaked out and super like, I'd like this to just fund so I could breathe, for the final day and not be like on my phone, like click, click, click.
I tell people all the time, we've mentioned this when you've been on before, man. Kickstarters are work. Like people think you're just going to go up and you're going to throw something up there and people are just going to give you money. But the amount of work, even for small, goals, something that's a lower tier goal, man, it's work. It's work.
Well, and normally our goals for comics are like, $5,000-$10,000, and we hit those easily, no problem. We unlock stretch goals and so on. This thing though is a completely different beast because we need all that money to make these freaking figures, man. Because we have to make, in order to get that price point down, we have to make like 1,000 figures. Yeah. So it's an immense number, but we're right there. I mean, we are right on the cusp. So I really don't have a doubt that we'll get there. It's just a matter of, can we get there before the final day? And we're not all sweating.
Well, Tom, tell the folks out there where they can go to get in on this and support this and support your comics and everything else.
Yeah, absolutely. So as far as social media goes, I live on Facebook. You can find me there, Tom Hutchinson. There's a Big Dog Inc. fan page. You can join as well, Big Dog Inc. with a K. Twitter and Instagram is BDI Comics. You can find us there. And then if you want to check this out, it's very simple, Kickstarter.com. All you got to do is go into the search button, type in Critter, or even my name. Either way will work, but type in Critter. We'll pop right up there. You can click on it. You'll see all the action figures. There's comic. If you're not a toy collector, we have the comics you can buy. There's art books. There's variant covers. There's all kinds of comic related stuff as well as the toy. So you don't have to just back the toy, and everything, every dollar, every book that we sell, every backer matters, especially as we're in those final 3 days.
Go on there. You heard the man. Go on there. Back it today. Tom, as always, a pleasure to have you on, and we'll be chatting soon, hopefully at a Comic-Con near you, or hopefully near me, or maybe near neither of us, because I any traveling would be good at this point.
We'll meet in the middle somewhere.
When we come back, we'll put a bow on tonight's episode. Welcome back to the Rogue Wave podcast. I want to thank Tom Hutchinson again, longtime friend, just a true success story as well in comics. Found himself. He has a great niche for what he does. That he has persevered through the ups and downs of the industry itself, being an indie publisher in the industry, and has found a home on Kickstarter now where he's absolutely flourishing. So got to hand it to him. And his books are solid. So. And if you buy the Penny the Soul trade, there's a forward by me in there. So, I mean, what more could you possibly want, Hassan?
You're right. Absolutely.
I like it. I like it.
I was enthusiastic about it until you said you were involved, and then now.
Well, I'm not involved. I just wrote the forward to the trade.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It
Sire,
doesn't take
by the
much.
way, is
it doesn't take
my
much.
creator-owned book, The Sire, does make an appearance in issue 3 of Critter, which I have a copy of as well, which is fantastic. And we tied it all together in that War of the Independence book that came out like 10, 15 years ago. So.
Yeah, I remember that. Mark is in that. My other friend came from the radio. So yeah, good stuff. Yeah,
I want to thank Tom for joining us. Next week, we're going to dive more into Peacemaker. I'm going to ask the question. This is the biggest question for next week. Who is the best mascot that we've seen? That's the big question. We got Grogu versus Eagly versus Baby Groot. That's the debate I think everyone has ever wanted. We're going to do that next week. I know Hassan's excited. I know. We'll see you guys next week. Rogue Wave.